Sarah and I just stopped at Dollar General. She had to get something for her sunscreen. And right over here are the busts of 3 presidents, not part of Mount Rushmore. It's kind of in the same vein. The presidents of Rushmore. And it's only some recent ones.
No. These aren't presidents of Rushmore because Bush is not. Wait, this is junior and then senior? Who's that?
This is Ronald Reagan.
It is?
Yes. And who's this next one?
I guess I see him.
Who's the next one?
I see it now, Kennedy.
John Kennedy. Ask not what your country can do for you.
You see how they made the eyes?
Yeah, that's what they did on Rushmore. They cut the pupils out to make them look 3D.
It looks like they had a bad facelift.
Bad facelift.
I wonder if their heads have fallen off at some point, or is that just how they put them on?
What's it made out of? Well, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. George W. Bush. Sarah's taking a picture of me right now. Okay, so this is in Hermosa. We're gonna go check out some other areas that are affiliated with some presidential history. In 1927, when President Calvin Coolidge announced that he wanted a summer away from bugs, crowds, and Washington, D.C., South Dakota worked hard to lure him to the Black Hills. The state legislature even passed a resolution formally inviting the president. Coolidge first wanted to know if flies and mosquitoes were a problem, and when he was told that there were few in the mountains, replied, "That's good. Last place I went, they nearly pestered me to death." The President and First Lady arrived in nearby Rapid City by train on June 13, 1927. Originally slated to stay for 3 weeks, the President extended his stay to 3 months. They wouldn't leave until mid-September. The President and First Lady brought their son John and an entourage of staff members, Secret Service agents, political dignitaries, and journalists, all who made their home for the summer in the State Game Lodge and surrounding cabins. So this next segment, we are here in Hermosa, South Dakota. It's a tiny little town outside of the Black Hills, and specifically outside of the church, the United Church of Christ. This is where President Coolidge and his wife, First Lady Grace Coolidge, attended church here while they were spending the 3 months that we're here in the Black Hills. It caused quite a stir. Thousands of people showed up here when they found out the President of the United States was worshiping here. Of course, President Coolidge was a regular church attender when he lived in Plymouth Notch, Vermont. In fact, I've been to that church. His family had its own pew, which was a common practice back then. This church looks pretty much the same as the time that Coolidge was here. Now, the only difference being that the front part where you enter those doors right there, that's all been added. So back in the day, these trees weren't here as well. President Coolidge would have walked up right there, steps going up into the building, entering right underneath the pillar there. And it looks like since then they've added some vinyl siding to this church. But yeah, President Coolidge was a religious guy. He was a Republican. He was a farmer. Of course, he had those good instincts of common sense spending. In fact, I admired President Coolidge for just who he was as a president. He was so concerned about federal overspending. There were times that he would go through and look at how much they were spending for pencils. And I think today he would probably roll over in his grave when he found out just exactly how we're indebting our future generations with this massive overspending.
I want to cut down public expense. I want the people of America to be able to work less for the government and more for themselves. I want them to have the rewards of their own industry. This is the chief meaning of freedom.
I'm sure all of this has been shored up since he was here. If we could only go back in time and see kind of the stir that the president created here. Of course, we can look at the pictures and see that the crowds that he generated, but that's pretty much it here. Something that I wanted to show you, that even in this tiny little town, the streets aren't even paved. It's got this red dirt gravel. And I'm wondering if that old house right there, it looks like it was probably here in 1927. The President and First Lady attended the Little Hermosa Congregational Church every Sunday of their Black Hills stay. Rolf Liam, a student minister from a Chicago seminary, was the man of the pulpit that summer and had no idea that he would have the President of the United States in his congregation all summer. One man in the congregation thought the young pastor needed a better suit, so promptly took him to Rapid City and bought him one. And in case anyone asks where Sarah is...
Don't give me no crap for sitting in the car. It's hot.
How hot is it today?
I don't know how hot well, it's in the 90s, but it's pretty humid. It's thick outside.
What is it, like September 4th, 5th?
September 5th.
5th, and it's still pretty hot.
Yeah.
In fact, they were telling us that the tourism in Keystone, which is right next to Mount Rushmore, is like 41% of normal. So the high gas prices and probably COVID still has affected the tourism at one of the country's biggest tourist attractions. So that's kind of concerning. If you happen to be in the Rushmore area and you want to see this site, you just come to Folsom and North 2nd Street. There's one more building I want to show you. It's one of the historic buildings of Hermosa. A lot of you probably have wondered if I do research when I come to towns. I do. Mostly try to fit into my schedule what facts I can learn about a town before I come into it. I didn't find a lot of history of this community. This is a historical museum. It's closed today. It's actually Labor Day. But I believe that's the Masonic Temple or Masonic Hall. I'm going to totally assume that this bank was here when President Coolidge rolled up the street to go to church here. It's fascinating to know it's still here. It says it's bank. We don't know what age. But it's built of the limestone that's pretty common around here. Not sure what it's used for today. I don't see any bullet holes. Of course. Just think of all the trade and traffic and gold that walked through those doors. I don't see any bullet holes, so possibly it never was robbed. But if these walls could talk, huh? Now at the very top, I'm assuming that's tin, but it's rusting through. It's like a tin can. So I decided to stop here at the Highland Cemetery in Hermosa, South Dakota, a little town here. And I want to talk to you about something that's posted right here at the entrance. Has some very historical significance. It's right over here at the beginning. We have rented this 4Runner right here. It's got a nice car. And right here at the entrance, there are some cannons, very old cannons that have some interesting significance to the Lincoln period. This plaque here says that these historical cannons stood in front of Dr. Samuel Mudd's cell on the Dry Tortugas, Key West, Florida. It was a prison donated by William Stanley in Post 148, the GAR, South Dakota, by the government in 1901. So these cannons have been in the cemetery ever since. Of course, you probably know the significance of Samuel Mudd. When John Wilkes Booth shot President Lincoln, he escaped into the wilderness, and he was on the lam for quite a while. And he encountered a country doctor by the name of Samuel Mudd who set his leg. The government found out later that Dr. Mudd had helped John Wilkes Booth and sent him to prison. Now, whether or not Dr. Mudd knew he was setting the leg of a presidential assassin, has still been debated today. I believe it's in the 1970s when Jimmy Carter was president. He finally gave Dr. Mudd a pardon after all those years. That's where we get the term, your name is Mudd. If you also remember that there was a Roger Mudd, it was a TV anchor for many years. I think he was on NBC. He was a relative of Dr. Mudd. It's hard to believe that after all these years, this cannon is still here. CA and Company of Boston made this cannon. It was one of the forts of Key West. That's where this was positioned. And we'll show you some pictures of that prison. Go check it out. 1849, stamped the date on this. Wow. Well, since we're here, we might as well just check out a few graves. I don't think there's anybody of significance, historically speaking. I mean, famous-wise. But this one kind of drew me. Thomas McCarthy. He was a Civil War veteran. Company A of the 15th New York Engineers. American Legion has their emblem right here. Overlooking these great hills outside of the Black Hills. The Black Hills are right over here. Here we have another John J. McCarthy, New York, Sergeant, 13th Infantry, 8th Division. He died August 22nd, 1920. So this grave was here at the time that President Coolidge was visiting this town. I think it's very doubtful that President Coolidge came up here. Now, he may have looked up top of a hill and saw the cemetery up here. These folks died all in 1889. Children of T.L. and Catherine Monahan. Here's a Thomas Monahan, Company K of the 100 New York Infantry. There were a lot of folks who came out to this part of the country after the war. They were attracted by the mining that was occurring back then. Of course, the opportunities of settling out west as well. So this is the famous State Game Lodge in Custer State Park outside of Custer, South Dakota. This is the Summer White House where President Coolidge stayed and his staff for approximately 3 months in 1927. And in June 1953, President Eisenhower came here as well, spent some time here. Now, on this lawn, President Coolidge posed in a ridiculous cowboy setup. Somehow they convinced him to be dressed as a cowboy with a 10-gallon hat and the chaps and everything, and the press made fun of him, and it happened right here on this lawn. And there's also a group picture that was taken right out here. The president was standing right about just to the, probably left to where that sprinkler is. A big group picture that was taken out here. This is just a beautiful area of South Dakota.
Coolidge also celebrated his 55th birthday out here on the lawn, complete with birthday cake. He was born on the 4th of July and would have only 5 more birthdays after this, dying at the age of 60 in 1933.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, the president was also photographed right here by these steps, and judging by the looks of that concrete, they're the original steps that he used. Now, when Eisenhower came here in 1953, he posed or was presented something on that balcony. I'll stand right where he stood. So it would have been right here where President Eisenhower was presented with something. I'm not sure what it was, but he was standing right here. Now, this sign here says circa 1919, but I kind of think it was built prior to that. Here's a better look at the sign. Summer White House. President Calvin Coolidge, family and staff occupied these buildings in 1927. And President Eisenhower here. Let's take a look at this. It's on the South Dakota Game, Fish, and Parks property, been placed on the National Register of Historic Places. There is a story I wanted to tell about President Coolidge when he was here. Apparently, he was waiting here on this porch. The First Lady and her Secret Service agent had took off for some kind of tour of the Black Hills here, and they supposedly got lost. 5 hours later, the President was waiting here, and he was very upset. He didn't know what happened to his wife. She was with the Secret Servicemen, so there was nothing to be concerned about. But little did he know, the officer that was in charge of her got lost, and he actually demoted him. I don't know what happened there. I guess there was possibly a hint of scandal that maybe she went off with this guy in the woods and was doing something that she wasn't supposed to be. That really doesn't fit with her character at all. But he wasn't having any of the Secret Service's ineptness, so he demoted him and had him moved, I think, to a Washington, D.C. assignment. But that's interesting nonetheless.
While Grace often knit on the porch with her 2 border collies and pet raccoon, the president mixed work with pleasure. On most weekday mornings, the president maintained a local office at the high school building in Rapid City where he conducted business. The Coolidges enjoyed frequent fishing trips and horseback riding in the hills, hosted distinguished visitors, and made several official visits to local festivals and places of interest. Charles Lindbergh also paid the hills a visit that summer. On the morning of September 2nd, during his goodwill tour of the continental 48 states, Lucky Lindy flew over Rapid City in the Summer White House. By chance, President Coolidge, who was outside having his picture taken, recognized the celebrated monoplane and waved at the world-famous aviator he had welcomed back from Paris a mere 3 months before. The visit to the Black Hills contained some personal heartache for the First Lady. Her white collie named Prudence Prim fell ill at the lodge and died. In his autobiography, President Coolidge mentions the dog's death. Quote, "We lost her in the Black Hills. She lies out there in the shadow of Bear Butte, where the Indians told me the Great Spirit came to commune with his children." Grace Coolidge later penned her feelings about animals in general, saying, "I am unable to understand how anyone could get along without some sort of pet." Here's the lobby. The State Game Lodge. It's a pretty cool place. And there is a portrait of President Coolidge inside, as well as his wife, Grace Coolidge. Here's the fireplace on the inside with a bison. Portrait, oil painting of a bison. Here's the dining room, the side of the lodge. And just over here is a gift shop. The president would have come right up the steps here into his room. The visit really made an impression on this place. And there's a picture of Teddy Roosevelt. I'm not sure. I don't think he stayed here. Here's the room that the president stayed in, the desk that he used. Can I videotape that desk? Can I videotape that desk?
Yeah.
Okay. This is the personal desk of Calvin Coolidge in summer 27. Wow. That's still here, huh? Wow. And this is the room. A little picture of him right there. They're making the bed, sorry. Is this the original bed? No?
I don't think so.
Okay. Wow.
I think all these are original.
What's that?
I think all these are original.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, there you go. President Coolidge's room. Thank you.
You're welcome.
From 37. There's Grace Coolidge on the porch. During his stay, Coolidge officially dedicated the inaugural work on the nearby carving of Mount Rushmore. He also issued the most famous pronouncement of his political career at the Rapid City High School. Quote, "I do not choose to run for president in 1928. On June 25, 1927, 200 members of the state legislature and 2 U.S. senators formally dedicated Sheep Mountain on Mount Coolidge in his honor. However, I didn't find any confirmation that Coolidge joined them. Naturally, Sarah and I wanted to see the mountain for ourselves since it was 6,024 feet high, the 6th largest peak in South Dakota. Before making our way up the narrow roads to the peak of Mount Coolidge, we made the Custer State Park loop to find these donkeys everyone said we would have to find. Boy, did we. Sarah's excited.
Watch out.
We're at Custer State Park and she saw her donkeys that she's trying to find.
Here's the crinkle of the paper. Like banana chips. A little making me nervous. No.
You want the donkeys? This little guy here, he's like real close. Oh! Oh, a little too close for comfort.
Y'all are scary.
Check it out.
Well, do you see when you come through? When you come through and one wants the food, and they'll block each other out. Oh, here he comes! Look. No fighting.
We have some crazy donkeys who have taken over our...
See? Look.
The attack continues.
Stop. You're gonna end up biting me and I'm not gonna be happy about it. Just move. Back up. Back up. Back up. Here comes another one. Oh gosh. They get pushy as to who's getting what. He likes Cheetos and pretzels.
I'm sure it's good for him too.
Hey, no fighting!
Sarah's getting attacked again.
No. 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 Hey!
We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 surrounding us. Uh-oh, they're having a fight here. So we made our way to the top of Mount Coolidge. It's named after President Coolidge, and there's an observation deck here. I was told this is not the highest peak in the area. It's about 6,000 feet. It's one of the largest peaks here. And Mount Rushmore is over in that direction. There's a whole tower here that they made.
The donkey's gone. We was watching you. They're chasing you the whole time. There's so many, and then they start nipping at each other when you're trying to feed one.
What were you giving them? Popcorn?
No, banana chips.
Oh, banana chips.
I didn't
Yeah.
know donkeys would like bananas.
They
They
enjoy
probably
it.
eat anything.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Oh my god, that was so
Yeah.
As we end this video, we want to thank you for watching this look back at one of the most overlooked presidents who rose to the challenge of leading our nation at a moment of crisis, the death of President Warren G. Harding. On your way out, please let us know what impressed you most about what you saw or learned here. Thank you so much.